Good afternoon. This is Mary Byron from the Commission on Institutional Change, and I'm coming to you today from the Mackey Austin Media Lab at Auburn Seminary in New York City. And I'm pleased to have with me today Caitlin Breedlove, who also served on the Commission for some time.
Hi, Mary. I'm really happy to be here. My name is Caitlin Breedlove, everyone. For those who may not know me, I work here at Auburn. I also used to work at the Unitarian Universalist Association as the campaign director for Side with Love, and I spent 10 years as the co-director of Southerners on New Ground song, and have a long history of organizing in red states, doing intergenerational feminist and LGBTQ organizing, and just generally having, been bit by the organizing snake and never letting it go. So I'm really happy to be here with my friend Mary to have this conversation.
Yeah, so can you tell me what you learned from your time with Side with Love about generational differences in organizing, and what are some of the best practices for engagement?
Sure. So, I think one of the first things about intergenerational work is that we have to figure out how we have some conversations about generations. What are they? What are some of the differences? Where are their cultural and gender and race and sexuality differences layered on with generational differences? And I think one of the first layers is, how do we get past the defensiveness, right? So I'll give you a really specific example. Climate change. Sometimes a hard conversation to have intergenerationally. Sometimes you have younger folks being like, how did ever all the older people screw it up? Quote unquote, this is the thing. And I think that we've also had, and this is particularly true, in the UU faith, there's folks who are like, I'm actually aggrieved. I've worked on climate for so many years. Quote, I don't feel like folks were listening. We were trying to make our contribution, right? There's actually two sides to that story. There's actually a lot of conversation there. And so when we move past the defensiveness and start to listen to each other and have real relationships, then I think it can be really helpful. The other thing I'd say about intergenerational work is that the ability to build relationships is often advanced by a couple things with any humans, but I think we forget this in intergenerational work. Sharing values, doing something together we can be proud of together, and having fun and humor and some downtime. It's going to sound simple, but sometimes people forget we're so involved in wherever we are in the life journey, we literally forget that other people are people too, right? Having a child, I have a young child, is a total example of that. It's like opened me up to how completely ignorant I was about actually having a child, and I have all kinds of conversations with anyone in my life about having a child, and it's opened this portal of empathy for me intergenerationally, for my parents, for other people my age with young kids, right? So thinking about how we actually create some of those spaces, because once you have a real relationship, it's much easier to disagree. It's much easier to not make assumptions about why you disagree. I see a lot of conversations where people assume, for example, that people who are over 50 are a lot more conservative than them. And, a lot of times people over 50 assuming, well, the way that, folks in their 20s are unpacking a certain problem is the same as the way we were doing that. Been there, done that kind of syndrome, right? And both are actually not helpful, and they're not very curious or open or interested in the other party. So that's a couple things that I think, I was able to learn.